Learning Parshas Yitro, which is the Parsha that has the Ten Commandments. Before we begin with the Ten Commandments, it's known as the Parsha of Yitro. We think we discussed this last year. There are only, I think it's 5 Parshas, did I get it right, that are named after people. Let's see if we can remember these.
Sarah?
No, next?
Bo.
But that's the guy.
Bo.
Bo.
Bo Derek.
we figured out which Bo was.
No,
it was Jackson.
Chaya Sarah.
Okay. Chayesar maybe, but that's okay. Fine, we'll accept it.
Noach,
right? Chayesar.
Yisro.
No, it's not named after him, right? Yisro, Balak, Pinchas.
Bilam? No,
Bilam. That's it. I think it's 5. Right?
Yeah, it's 5 and Sarah.
Chayesar, if you can. Yeah.
Okay, the number 5.
But it's interesting that it's called Yisro. Why is it called Yisro? I mean, this is this one about the 10 Commandments. I mean, this is the Aseret HaDibros. It should have some other type of title over here. It's not even like it even starts with the verse over here. So Yisro gains many merits. This is Moshe's father-in-law. He gains many merits, and he has a chapter. He has a whole parsha named after him. So just a couple of points about Yisro. One thing that I saw, Rabbi, I think it was Rabbi David Silverberg, that presents the following idea. If you look in the beginning. After he brings back Moshe's family to them, and then he watches Moshe adjudicating. He's doing the business. He's doing the judgments for all the people. He's giving out the laws to all the people. This is before the 10 Commandments. And one point that he sees over here is Vayar Chosein Moshe Es Asher Oseh La'am. So Moshe's father-in-law sees the way Moshe is judging the people. He says, "What are you doing? How are you going to do this all day and night? This is impossible. You can't rule this way. You need to come up with a better framework." So Moshe responds to his father-in-law, I'm doing this, people have to come to me, and I have to have direct connection to God, and basically they're going to hear from me. Okay? And so Moshe's father-in-law responds and says, "This is not good. You're gonna get totally wiped out. It's gonna be too difficult. You have to come up with another plan. Another plan is gonna be you're gonna have delegation of judges, different people that you're gonna teach over, and they're gonna give this over." What's important about this story over here? So in the beginning, it talks about who this Yisro is. Yisro is the father-in-law of Moshe. When it comes to Yisro giving advice to his son-in-law, never mentions his name. It only calls him the father-in-law of Moshe. It's fascinating, right? So he explains what is the idea, why is it? Each time it says, Vayomer Chosein Moshe Elav. Moshe's father-in-law says to him, it's not good. Okay, each one of these times. In these few sentences, he's only referred to as his father-in-law. Because why? When he's giving advice, he's giving advice for the sake of just being Moshe's father-in-law. Not because he wants to get any accolades himself. So the Torah is going out of its way to tell us there's a certain way that you give over advice to people. A certain way that it's for the sake of Moshe's benefit. It's not just simply Yisro, this man, but rather the father-in-law of Moshe. So as all father-in-laws know, you have to be careful how you give over advice. If you've ever been a son-in-law or a daughter-in-law, you know what it's like getting advice from your in-laws, and a lot of times you don't want to take their advice because they're not giving it to you because it's for you. They're giving it because it's for them or for their daughter. So if your father-in-law is giving you advice, it generally means that he wants his daughter to have the most perfect life. So he must tell over the son-in-law what the story is, So we have this nuanced relationship over here of a father-in-law, son-in-law relationship. And here we're being taught over here that his whole goal was to really make Moshe's life easier, not in any way to take any benefit for himself. So there's one level of humility that we see in Moshe. You had a question on that?
Yeah. So one here is that it says that you should respect your parents-in-law. It's kind of like reference, you have to respect your parents-in-law.
Right.
And the second one, you should accept any advice that you get, kind of like to listen to it.
Well, it's a nice thought, but it's not correct. You should accept to listen to it and follow it?
No. If it's a good advice, you should actually accept it.
Meaning what? If it's bad, if it's good advice, what would I think? If it's good advice, I shouldn't accept it?
No, if it's a good advice, you should.
So why do Torah needs to go out of its way to tell me if someone gives you good advice, follow it? I don't think so. It's pretty common sense, right?
Yeah, common sense, yeah.
What is it telling you? Because actually, when you look later on, he tells Moshe, you know how you're going to choose the people. This is the type of person you're going to choose. And Moshe chooses some totally different people. It's like, Dad, whatever Yisro, I want to thank you. Perfect advice. I'm going to go with plan B. Right? So you take the advice, you listen to it, but you're not necessarily going to follow it.
Well, Moshe was never a Nasiv and Ishma kind of guy.
Wow. He was. You mean only the people were?
Well, yeah. Didn't he argue with Hashem all the time?
I don't know. I think he's clearly a Nasiv and Ishmael. It's hard to say. Hard to say he's not.
But he did not argue for himself.
The Parsha is named after Yisro. Does the Torah name the Parshas, or did the rabbis?
That we have Halacha Moshe Sinai. It's considered given over from Moshe at Sinai, so it's not like they came to name these things. But the only thing that we have that's not is the chapter headings. Where a chapter begins and ends. In the Torah, it has different breaks, where in a Chumash it will show like a big samach or a pei. But the actual chapter headings are different, and therefore, so the psukim, the numbering is different inside, but actually the titles are the same. So that's one idea about Yisro, that when Yitro, right? In English they say Jethro, which is really just Yisro.
Beverly Hillbillies.
Okay, so that's just one idea that we see, that when it comes to understanding who he is, it's really this concept that he's giving it for the sake of Moshe to be able to benefit. That's one aspect. There was another idea. Let's see if I remember where it was on that page that's not here.
So I have a question about, like, in Parsha when it talks about it, and it talks about Israel, when Israel came.
Yeah.
Israel came already when Moshe was teaching it. So, like in Midrash, it like says there that it's actually there. They already received the Torah when Israel came. So that's why Moshe was teaching the Torah to people already, because it was received.
But it wasn't the
was
same.
like
It wasn't from the
order.
Ten Commandments
It
yet, right?
It wasn't in order, but they received the Torah already
Right,
by that
correct.
time.
They had already been teaching some of the things ahead of time. Correct.
Why did they actually specify that? Like, why did they put it like not completely like out of order?
Well, Torah is given at different times, so it's not all we're going to give you to all at once. I mean, there's going to be the Sinai experience. The Sinai experience is what takes us. See, we left Egypt as a unified nation. We were one people. So what did Sinai actually do to us? Going to Har Sinai, going to Sinai actually made us into a holy nation. By now imbuing every one of us with the Ten Commandments and the Torah itself, that made us into an Am Kadosh, into this holy nation, that then is going to now promote Torah and spirituality to the entire world. To be a unified people that we were. And that was one of the precursors that Rabbi Yochanan Levavitz points out. It's one of the precursors that you need in order to receive the Torah. He points out that we learned from the Gemara says that at the time when they sat at the bottom of the mountain, that they sat at the mountain, you know what happened? It meant they were all together, it was like one man with one heart. That's what it was. He says that was the only time. Every time after that, everybody fought. Always fighting. There was always infighting. You know, when you're growing up with siblings, you're just like, why do we fight all the time? You're like, that's what Jews do. But that's what siblings do. So, we were one nation, right? You don't have that? You never had that?
No, sibling rivalry? No.
Never. Okay, yeah.
Don't even know why they have that.
He was the youngest one. They were always killing him.
I
So
just not understand. Moshe, you said Moshe read Torah, but Torah he received later.
No. Parts were given over to him to give over to the Jewish people at different times. So, well, we know that there were 3 times the Torah is written down or given over to Moshe. Tent of meeting, you have Sinai, you have the Ohel Moed, the tent of meeting, and then you have it on Arvos Moab, the plains of Moab. 3 distinct times the Torah is given. It wasn't given to him in one scroll, because then he would open up and scroll and go, oh, there's going to be this golden calf thing. Bad idea, guys.
I'm going to die.
Don't do it, right? He's like, oh, seriously? Spies? You kidding me? Desert? 40 years? Bad idea, guys. Don't go, right? So those things are not given over to him yet. There are times that certain parts of the Torah are given over set times. So at this point, before the 10 Commandments, there are some laws that are given over. Some laws are already given over and are experienced by the Jewish people, which is going to lead to the question, and that is, so what are the 10 Commandments? What's the goal of these 10 Commandments? The 10 Commandments is not the whole Torah, and he already gave over Torah. He's been teaching now people laws. And Yisro comes in and change some new laws up, and then you're going to have the 10 Commandments. So what is the goal over there of these 10 Commandments? What are the Aseret Dibros actually doing for us over here? Isn't that like on top of every Ark Kodesh that you see of the 10 Commandments? Isn't this the essence of everything for the Jewish people? So what is so important about 10 Commandments?
Main rules to follow.
The main rules, okay? Which means that all these people that he's teaching them rules before that What They're like, Moshe, come on, enough with the preview. I want to see the main thing, right? So there has to be some nuance so we understand why these Aser Sedibros are the main rules. And that's a great question or a statement why they are the main rules. But what we're saying over here is that I was addressing your statement. Now I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it.
Chronological order?
No.
Father-in-law.
No? Okay, we're going to go to the part that I was going to say anyway, because I was just addressing your statement. One of the aspects that's quoted in the Orach Chaim says, what is the story over here? That Moshe is giving the laws, comes along his father-in-law, this non-Jewish man, and he's like, listen, I know you're talking to God, I get it, but have I got an idea for you? Right? Wait, Yisro, do you even know who your son-in-law is? Do you know he speaks face to face with God? No one ever speaks like this to God, and you're giving your son-in-law advice? So first of all, that's a statement for all fathers-in-laws. They'll always be able to give advice to their sons-in-laws no matter who they are. Right? Your son-in-law could be Bill Gates. Don't worry, I'm your father-in-law. I can give you advice, right? That's one statement, right? But more than that, there's a bigger message that's learned that the Orach Chaim says, guess what? Amazing. What's going to happen when the Jewish people are going to get the Torah? The Torah is not unique for the people only, that we're just going to have to follow it. The Torah is much more than that. It's bigger. What's the big part of it? This is going to be the light that's going to shine on all the nations. So in order for the nations to be able to experience that, Hashem wanted it in such a way that a non-Jew would walk in and say, hey, I'd like to give some suggestions to how to make it even better, because it's going to be for us also. Mind-boggling, right? He accepts it. He accepts the ruling that Yisro says over to him. Yisro is a non-Jewish priest, okay, whether he left his religion or not, but he was not a Jew. He comes in to give the advice, and Moshe accepts it, that the first time prior to the actual Sinai experience and the entire Ten Commandment experience, he now accepts ideas from the other nations. It's not to say that they're changing the Torah around. They're saying, no, I don't think we need to follow this, we need to follow that, but rather to enhance it so that the other nations are actually going to be following it well. It's a fascinating concept over here that's actually it gives right to the other nations to have a part within the Torah itself. Obviously, there's certain parts of the Torah they can learn and certain parts they can't learn. One of the main aspects is that the other nations have to learn the 7 Noahide laws. They're bound by the seven commandments of Noah. So how are they bound by that? Well, the only way they can be bound by that is if they accept the Torah itself. Right? They have to be able to accept that Torah. If someone doesn't accept that Torah, where did I just see that? I think Moshe Feinstein points out this idea. Where did I see it? I think he says that the Ramban points out this idea. I'm pretending to read it, but it's not here. It looks like it's here, but it's not here, right? I don't know. Maybe I made it up. Yeah. Whatever. I thought I saw it over here. It led the Rambam to reject philosophers such as Aristotle and Plato. He had been praising them, but he eventually rejected them, and they said they could not be counted amongst the wise and pious ones of the other nations because they lacked the faith in the Torah of Moshe. They didn't believe in that. They didn't believe in philosophy, they believed in the Torah of Moshe, which means a righteous Gentile, someone who is at the highest caliber, who realizes that they have to follow the 7 Noachide laws, it's because they believe in Moshe and they believe in the Torah of Moshe, and that's what it's all about. So here Yisro is coming in giving advice, because the Torah is going to be for all the nations. Fascinating concept over here. Okay, what I want to discuss, really that's probably the most of what I want. I want to discuss really about the 10 Commandments, the Aseres HaDibros. Before we get into those 10 Commandments, into the Aseres HaDibros, so there's a lot of precursors that go into these 10 Commandments. But prior to this happening, God tells over to Moshe about how you're going to give this over. So it says on the third day when the Jewish people left Egypt, Bayom Hazeh, on this day they came to the desert of Sinai, and Moshe went up to the mountain, and God called from him from the mountain. He said, Ko tamar leveis Yaakov, say over to the house of Jacob, v'taged l'bnei Yisrael, and teach over to the Bnei Yisrael, the Jewish people. So Rashi is quoting from a Gemara over here. That what is that referring to? Rashi says, Beit Yaakov is The women. That's why all the girls' schools are called Beis Yaakov. Why the shul is called Beth Jacob, right? I don't know why it's called Beth Jacob, right? Because it's not like a women's shul. I don't know why it's called that.
Why is the woman it's Ben Yaakov called?
Good question, right? It should be called like Beit Sarah. What are you calling it Beis Yaakov, right? Why are you calling it, right? So he says, Kol Tamar LeBeis Yaakov, say to the house of Jacob. So we can understand house, because the woman is the, we'll call it ruler of the house, master of the house, right? Sing it.
Woman,
Dun, dun, that's the house.
Yeah, I don't know the rest of the words. I couldn't do it.
You don't want to. No.
Good. So, the Rashi points out over here that Beis Yaakov is referring to that of the women, and Bnei Yisrael, Bnei children, is referring to that of the men. What is that Rashi talking about over here? So Rashi says, let me just get to that page over here. Kotamar, this is how you're supposed to say it. When it comes to the house of Yaakov, when it comes to the women, say it to them in a soft tone. Say it to them in a soft tone. But when you're going to say it over to the men, teach it differently. You're teaching it to the women differently than you're teaching it to the women. How are you teaching it to the men?
Sternly.
Sternly and?
Aggressively.
Aggressively and? How you teach them aggressively?
Loud.
Loud. Right? So Rashi says over here, the way you teach it over to the men is onshin. Tell them all the punishments. You don't do this, you know what's going to happen? Going to beat you. Going to beat you, right? Tell over the punishments, vidikdukin, and all the little nuances to women. Tell them softly, oh, the Torah is so beautiful. The Torah is so sweet. To the men, you are going to be whipped if you don't do this. Right? We are going to punish you to no end. And let me tell you all the laws, every intricate laws. You make a bracha like this, you hold it like this, you do all these things. So it says, tell over to the men, Dvarim HaKashin Kegid, and say over to the men those things that are really tough, really rough things. So obviously, to the crowd over here, why is that so? Why would you say that? Why? No, why? I understand the women need to be spoken softly. Why do the men need to be spoken roughly?
Because that's the only
It's the only way they're going to listen, right?
We think we know better.
Because we think, okay.
Well,
Much
I mean, women are more connected. Women are more connected. They don't need, to be told. Whereas we have tzitzis, we have a kippah we have to wear, we have to put on tefillin. We need constant reminders.
You have time-bound mitzvot.
Okay, so meaning we need this, so therefore what? The reason why we need it to be told harshly is...
We have a thick skull.
So I think that's a negative way, which I agree with anyway, but maybe there's a positive way we can look at it also. What's the positive way? The women are oftentimes much more spiritual, like you said, which means they're much more connected to the spiritual things, where the men are much more physical related, and therefore they need to have something physical bound. They need to understand it. They need to see practicality. Remember this, in relationships, women like the relationship, men like to fix. So when a man is crying, a woman goes over to, pull the needle out of his toe. When a woman is crying, a man has to go over there and say, what's wrong? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I won't do it again, right? Meaning, when it comes to relationship, men oftentimes like to fix. They like to fix when there's a problem. Women like the nurturing. It's not about fixing, it's about the emotions that are associated there. So for men, they need to okay, what's the deal? Just tell me, I want to know how, why, what am I doing? I want to understand, I want to use my brain to figure this out. Tell them over all the intricacies so they can actually work their brain to do these things, because they just want to be doing something. It's like the fixing of things, like the study of Torah. It's like, I want to be working with it, where it's not necessarily about the relationship of it, but it's about having an interaction with it. Okay? On this, Rav Moshe Feinstein points out that the women are told first on this. Why? Because if it was only about the study of Torah and the fulfillment of mitzvahs, you're going to wait till the child gets older, because that's when he's going to be able to retain these things. Who knows if the child is going to be fully into it and grasp it? But when the wife is dealing with the initial child rearing of the children, husbands of course are not there because they're in shul all the time. And they can't make it. As someone just said recently, I was at a Shabbat Brachos, he said, when you first get married, so when you have to run out to go to Mariv, the evening service, which is about 15 minutes long, so you're there, 15 minutes, you're home, And then, like 2 months later, it's like Marv suddenly is taking a half hour longer, and like, what's going on? Why is it taking a half hour longer? Well, you're schmoozing with your friends now. You meet, all these different things, and then like 3 months, 6 months after that, it's like 45 minutes. And you come home after 45 minutes. Your wife says, "Where have you been?" I've been working on my kavana. I've been praying so deeply over these last few months. That's what's changed. So, but he's been schmoozing. That's why someone sent me a thing that says, it says that Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob each established a different prayer, right? Abraham established Shachris, the morning prayer, Yitzchak, the afternoon prayer, and Yaakov, Marv. So they said, we understand why Yaakov established Marv. He has 12 kids. He's got to get out of the house. Who wants to put the kids to bed at that hour? So what Rav Moshe Feinstein points out is that, but the truth is over here, the main focus of what you can do to your children really begins in the beginning of those early years. And the women are going to be there at the early years, or the husbands may not necessarily be there at the early years, and therefore the women need to be told first that if you want to understand what Torah is about, it's about that nurturing process that you have. Start young with your children, and don't wait till they can understand and like you. Start young, so these are things that are nurtured to become simply a part of their lives. But I want to share with you, kind of like the conversation we were having before, which I'm not bringing up here, but Rabbi Yochanan Levovitz points out the following interesting concept over here. It says, tell over to the house of Yaakov, it refers to the women, tell it to them softly. They need to be able to understand it in a proper way, that they can accept it, they can receive it. And for the men, you can say it harshly, you can say the punishments are going to be associated with it. What he says is like this, he says, it's not necessarily referring to men or women, it's referring to how a person processes things. Which means, if you're going to tell me, some people, they like learning laws. They latch onto laws easily. They're able to focus and do laws. It's not so hard for them to do. And some people, you tell them laws, they go, I'm not interested. I want relationship. I want meaning. I want value in these things. That's what they want. Says Rabbi Yochanan Levovitz, he says, that's what it actually shows over here. It's not telling you that there's men and women, but there's the concepts of what these two represent, and this applies to each individual their particular way. It says, if you see most men are at the place where they want to hear the laws, the nitty gritty. Just tell me what I got to do right. Can't tell me what's wrong. And in many cases, women may be the ones that want to hear the soft-spoken things. But it doesn't matter who you are, man or woman. If you connect to these things better because you like the framework, the structure, the laws, the intricacies about these things, then that's how you should be told. And if you like it because you like the philosophy, the hashkafa, the feel-goodness, and the love, then that's how you actually have to be taught. So either way, a person has to be able to study Torah, has to be taught a proper way. And that is, of course, always a struggle. You never know. Like, when you get up to give a drasha or you're giving a lecture to anybody, like, am I hitting the right person? Or am I giving them the wrong information and it would work for them? It was great for me last week. I was giving a drasha. You don't know who's going to be affected by it. So I'm giving the sermon in shul, fine. And someone had a guest. He had his nephew over, 11-year-old nephew. So I get no comments after the drasha. And then someone comes over to me and he goes, I want to tell you something. My nephew came from the East Coast. And he said to me, that was the first drasha I ever understood. That was great. Because in his shuls he went to, they're giving usually like on a different level, or maybe it's in Yiddish or a different language, whatever it is. I was like, well, that's great. I gave a lecture to 40 people so that 11-year-old boy could hear it, Everyone else is a different age, but okay. Did I guide my audience properly? I don't know. It's like everyone else is over than 11 and he's the only one that understood it. Okay, let's move on. Alrighty. Either way, when it comes to Torah, the point is that a person has to be able to receive it in such a way. And if they're not getting it properly, they have to find the right way to get it. And they say, I want to take it in, but it's not hitting me the right way. Find the right way. But we have now a general framework. There's a general framework that says certain people handle it this way, with the harshness, with the laws, with the intricacies, allow them to figure things out. And some people don't want that at all. They want to hear it about the motivation. They want to hear about the leadership. They want to hear about the goodness and things like that. These are two different approaches that are given over. Now we're going to take a walk into the Ten Commandments. Yes, sir. So Dibros.
When you say it, you mean like about the Torah? You're talking about that it's given to people and actually taught to people like different way, just teaching, but still like it should be accepted. or just like saying, like, I don't know, to give like more information about it. It's like two different things. Like if people don't want to accept it, they don't accept it.
No, it doesn't mean that they can't. I mean, it says like you're not allowed to murder. Well, to them, they need to hear you're not allowed to murder. If you're murdering, you're going to do this. To them, they have to hear like how bad murder is. It's the soul of the individual that you're taking away, and that's why you can't do it. And you're not focusing on the we're going to kill you type of thing. But we're focusing on how you can relate the message over by giving over the same content. That's what it seems to be.
Excuse me, you said Torah was given 3 times, right?
Different parts of it, yeah.
So all 3 times it was given to Moses?
Yeah.
Or to different
It says in here, yeah, through Moshe, meaning different parts were given over at different times.
different times?
So here we're learning about Shabbos, here we're learning about other things. Later on you're going to learn about different laws that are given over. Yeah, that's what it seems to be. And then so there's 2 different approaches. Either as it was given, Moshe wrote it, or at the end, Hashem said, I want you to write this whole thing down.
And it was witnesses when he gave.
Yeah.
But if it was given like in different times, like let's say, like you say the spies and all the stuff, it was like it's different times, so there is no way when he was teaching it, he could not taught that.
He didn't teach the story, right? So the question is, there were certain laws that he might have given over, but not yet the stories themselves. But it's hard to say that because really the stories and laws are
he was
intertwined.
constantly writing the Torah. At the end that he was dying, right? It's not like full Torah that he wrote. He might have some pieces eventually, and actually it was kind of like put in places.
There's a lot of explanations as to how the Torah was given, how it was written, and things like that. I don't want to necessarily focus on it. It's a great question though, because everyone wants to know when was it? Because the Torah preceded everything. It's what God told Moshe to write down in the scroll, which is everything, and how it becomes everything. So, but again, there's also that question we asked before, and that is, what's the need of the 10 Commandments? We're going to have a Torah scroll, and then we have Aseret Dibros. Right? We're going to have this scroll, and we're also going to have these tablets. So what are the necessities for these? So we are going to look at a couple of aspects of the 10 Commandments. One aspect that I want to focus on is why is it, as you pointed out, that it's the general ruling. It's the general laws for everybody. Because how are these the general laws? It's an obvious question how it's the general laws of all of the Torah. So we know that there are 2 tablets, okay? And 5 of them are written on one side, 5 of them on the other side. Okay, what do they represent?
God,
Relationship to God,
Relationship to God, relationship to man. Okay, what are the first 5? Go.
Okay. First.
Go.
I'm the God.
I'm Lord your God. It's belief in God, having the general concept of emunah. Slow down. Faith in God, right? And that's the relationship. The belief in God, knowing that God is in control of everything. So that is my first level of relationship. He's in control. Next one.
I'm the only one.
Have any other gods.
Shall not have any other gods. Okay? Next one.
Don't say my name.
Don't say God's name in vain. Next.
Keep Shabbos.
Keep Shabbos. Next.
Honor your parents.
Honor your parents. Okay? Next. 6th.
Do not steal.
Do not murder.
Do not murder. Do not steal. Do not.
Next one
covet.
is
No. 7 is do not kill. 7 is not kill.
Frogs.
No, kill is number 8. Murder is number
Frog.
7.
Kill
is number 7. It's a gun.
Oh, it looks like a gun, I guess. Do not murder.
Yeah. Steal is number 8. Handcuffs.
What? Oh, is that how you learned it?
Alright,
What is it like
that's
in
clever.
jail? Yeah.
No, that's age. That's Lori Palatin.
Okay, let's just see. So here's the only issue: that kill is number 6.
Oh, kill number
I have to
6.
tell you.
Oh, did I say it wrong? I'm gonna check.
Yeah, 6. Pulling the trigger. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm going to tell you. So, number 5, honor your father and your mother, so you shall have long life. Number 6, do not murder. Number 7,
Do not steal.
adultery. You shall not commit adultery. Number 8,
Stealing.
handcuffs. Fine, good. But it's kidnapping.
Oh,
Right, kidnap.
really?
Yeah, it's kidnapping. You know how to kidnap.
Thou shalt not kidnap.
Number 9.
Stealing a life.
Number 9,
Right.
Bear false
Do not
witness.
covet.
bear false
Do
witness.
not lie. Yeah.
Number 10,
Do not covet.
do not covet. Do not desire.
Kavod? Do not desire something that doesn't belong
Give it to him in
you.
Russian. What is
Не
There you go.
завидуй, не завидуй.
Не завидуй.
Right. That's it.
Девятый.
Десятый. Не завидуй,
Yeah,
что у
okay,
кого-то
that's
дом,
enough. I
не
said one
завидуй,
word.
у кого-то жена лучше, не завидуй.
Let the rabbi do the
What's going on
explaining.
over here?
Соседа был больше.
I don't know. They're conspiring here. I don't know what they're saying. Okay, so we have our 10. So now when we have our 10, what we're going to try to do is look to see if we can put the correlation together. 5 and 5. What is the correlation between the first 5 and the second 5? So before we get to that correlation, the first 5 and the second 5,
Positive and negative.
no, I mean, you're right. The one is positive, one is negative. Fine, good. But how do they correlate? So the commentators try to put connections between 1 and 6, 2 and 7, 3 and 8, 4 and 9, 5 and 10, right? That's one way to do it. But obviously the question is, what do they have to do with each other? Why is this the overall essence of all of the Torah? Why is it so special?
10 flags.
So we've said this before. Oh, so you have the best answer, relationship, right?
Relationship between God and relationship.
So what is that relationship? This is going to be the amazing question. Before we get that, so everyone keeps throwing in these plagues, 10 plagues, right? We've said this in previous years. That, what do we say? The world is created with 10 utterances.
Right.
Following the 10 utterances, the Egyptians, along with other nations, went and degraded the world. So what happened? They degraded the world. The world had to then been purified, so it needed the 10 plagues. And then it had to be reconfigured again, and that is the 10 commandments. So the 10 commandments are supposed to parallel the 10 utterances of creation. That's really what it is. Bereshit, but at the beginning God created, that is Anochi Hashem Elokecha. It's the oneness of God. There's nothing else but God. That's the beginning of all creation. How the others correlate, I'm not really sure. But that's how it's supposed to be 10, 10, and 10. That all 3 sets of 10 relate to each other. And now at the time of the 10 Commandments, where we learn that the Midrashim say that when the Jewish people were at Sinai, it's as if they were purified like Adam Harishon prior to the sin, like Adam before the sin of eating from the tree. So that makes sense, because if you had the 10 utterances, then the 10 plagues. So now these 10 commandments are going to be the quote-unquote, we'll call it the reenactment or re-giving of purification onto the world. So what we're going to look at is really this mirror that we have in the 10 Commandments. So Elvira pointed out beautifully that it's really about relationship. The first 5 are really about relationships that we have between man and God. Why is that? Why are those relationships different than the relationships between man and man? Well, you'll tell me, one's intangible, the one's tangible. But there's the obvious question, if the first 5 are about relationships between man and God, so why is number 5 on that list? What's number 5? Honor your father and your mother.
It's about being
So what?
scared, being like respectful, you're
Okay.
scared about your parents. So
Scared? It's about being
kind of
scared?
like, yeah, you can be scared. Like they're gonna say,
Respect your parents.
you respect, and if you're doing something and you're doing something wrong,
Why can't you put that on the other side?
because it has a relationship with God.
Why?
Since if you're disrespecting your parents, you can say I can disrespect God.
Why? Why can't I disrespect my friend and say the same thing?
Hashem is part of the.
Hashem is part of the relationship.
Parents gave life, you.
He's the
Hashem gave
He's the
life.
third one.
Good. That's the difference, right? What is the difference? So Rabbi David Foreman points out, right?
Star pupil.
What?
Star pupil.
Star people, yeah. So what does he point out? He points out that what he calls peer relationships versus vertical relationships. The last 5 commandments are about the peer, right? You can't murder. Why? Just simply because you're a human being, I'm a human being, I can't murder, can't steal, can't do any of these things. It's about how you deal with everybody else. The first 5 are about vertical relationships. When you and God, there's a hierarchy. There's someone above you. Your parents are above you. That's why you couldn't put that parental one, you couldn't put on the other side with honoring your parents as part of the other 5. Even though it's people to people, it's man to man, but it's not vertical. Here, this goes above. There's someone that's above you, and therefore, honoring your parents really goes above that. So we understand here, as Elvira pointed out, it's really about relationships. So what is this concept about relationships? So what he points out the following. He says that we know there's a famous story that this prospective convert came over to Hillel and he said, "I'd like to convert. Teach me the Torah on one foot." And what does Hillel respond? Let's see who gets it right and who gets it wrong.
He gets on one foot and say, treat your close one as your own. But it's
Everything
the same
else.
way.
Keep your enemies close and your friends closer? No, what is it? No? Okay, well.
Love thy neighbor, everything else
Like
is
your neighbor as
commentary.
your own.
Right, so who wants to get it right now?
Love
Love
your
your
neighbor
neighbor
as you
like
love yourself, and the rest is commentary.
Good, who wants to do the right one now? Yeah, okay. Okay, good, yeah.
Here's the come back tomorrow, and here's the Aleph base. Come back tomorrow and repeat it. I don't know what.
Close. See, people get confused with the statement made by Rabbi Akiva
That's Rabbi Akiva, yeah.
and a statement made by Hillel. The statement made by Rabbi Akiva is love your neighbor as yourself. That is the general rule in the Torah. The Klal Gadol, the great rule of the Torah is love your neighbor like you love yourself. That's not Hillel's statement.
If now,
That's Rabbi
if not
Akiva's.
now, when?
No? Don't do tomorrow what you can put off. Don't do today what you can put off for tomorrow. No, that's not it. Okay.
You are not
Don't
to
put,
be.
don't
To be,
put the
not to
axe
be.
in front of the light.
One in the hand is worth how many doctors does it take to? Okay, so the answer is, what did Hillel say? Hillel said, "Don't do to others what you wouldn't want done to yourself." Yasha, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice work, right? So it sounds like the one Rabbi Akiva made. Rabbi Akiva said, "Love your neighbor like you love yourself." What did Hillel say? Don't do to others what you want to do to you. If you don't want someone to step on your foot, don't step on their foot. So lovingly, right?
It's a softer version.
It sounds like a softer version. It actually sounds like as Tully pointed out, the first 5 were the positive, the last 5 were the negative, right? So love your neighbor like you love yourself is a positive thing. It's about love, about relationship, about the developing a relationship. But don't do unto others is the negative. It's not about relationship. Do you know why I'm not going to spit in your face? Because I don't want you to spit in my face. Not because I love you. Just because I don't want to have to get a towel for my face. Right? Wow, this is so wonderful. So this is what Hillel says over to this prospective convert. Right? You see this? What is he telling over to him? Nothing that's really so loving. You know? Tell me, I want to know, what does the Torah mean to you? What is it? Tell me about love. Well, if you don't want to be punched in the face, don't do it to somebody else. Doesn't sound so loving. If you don't want to be stolen from, don't steal from anybody else. So this is what Hillel teaches over to the convert. Very different than what Rabbi Akiva said. What we have in our minds is like, we're such a loving religion and the like. It's a very different concept that he presents over here. It doesn't really show that I love you by doing these things. So the Torah now at this point is not about the love that you have. Because you know it's interesting, Kabedes Avicha, that 5th commandment, honor your father and your mother, it doesn't say to love your father and your mother. You don't have that. V'ahavta l'orecha kamocha, love your neighbor like you love yourself. V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha, you have to love Hashem your God. Honor your father and your mother. Come on.
It also doesn't necessarily say obey. Like if they give you bad advice.
You're right. It's honor. There's 2 things: honor and revere, fear, right? Reverence that you have for them. But it doesn't say love, right? So it's interesting over here. This is on this second half. You have to love God, but when it comes to your parents, not necessarily. But yet this is the line that Hill's basically saying over here. You don't want done to others, so don't do it to them. Basically, so how do we understand this concept? So what he points out is that Hillel's source for this concept, because it's not in the Torah. Rabbi Akiva's concept is in the Torah. It's a verse. It's a pasuk that says, "Love your neighbor like you love yourself." But for Hillel, there's no verse in the Torah. Don't do unto others what you don't want to do to you. That's not a verse in the Torah. That's just the negative. It sounds like it's the negative version of Rabbi Akiva's statement over here. So let's understand this concept over here. So what he presents is the following idea. That basically, there's 5 fundamental principles. And they represent these principles as the world we actually live in. And it's a world that we live in with vertical relationships between man and God, man and their parents and the like. Basically those that have created us, God, our parents and the like, and those who we live with, those that we deal with on a regular basis, interpersonal relationships. So basically, this is what we have, these 2 types of relationships that we're dealing with. If you're combining these 2, and we'll understand again we're going to try to see if we can understand Hillel's comment over here, is that one of the fundamental principles that you're going to get about understanding what the Torah is about is knowing that it's all about how you interact with everything around you, with the people who create everything around you, I mean God, your parents and the like, and everybody else who's not a creator, but who's in this world with you. Okay, let us put these together. Okay, so the first one, I am Hashem your God. How does that correlate to the one across from it? The first of the positives, the first of the negatives, do not murder. Go for it.
Only Hashem is allowed to take your life, not a human being, not anybody else. Hashem created you, and Hashem has the right to whatever.
Let's put it this way. You're right that you're going to say that everything that's on this side, God's in control of and not you to do. But what is the lesson? There's a lesson that we learn on this one, and that lesson applies to me and God, and that same lesson applies to me and other people. Why can I not murder? Why is not murdering correlated to belief in God?
God gives life.
God gives life, and therefore who are you to decide to take life?
Or not.
That's one. Okay, beautiful. So God gives life, and you don't have that. You don't have that right to take that away. So that's one aspect. There's another aspect of that. Which one to see? I don't think I saw it here.
Can it be like something like trust in me? It's pretty much like I'm the God, and don't murder, don't like kind of like kill.
Then it's with anything.
God created.
God is the ultimate creator. God is the ultimate creator. So I don't have a right to take away that
It's
creation.
work for creation, not for
Destruction.
Not for destruction. Very nice. Okay, that's a beautiful idea. This world is right for us to create as well, and not to actually be destructive. But it's ultimately that God is the real power of all life, and who am I to actually take that away? So if I recognize God as the creator of everything, and that He does everything, so then I don't have a right to take that away from anybody else, right? Human beings, even if we don't consider them to be creators, but they are creators, I don't have a right to take away that element of creation. The second one is you shall not have any other gods. Easy match. How does it match up to?
Adultery.
Do not commit adultery.
You'll have no multiple partners.
You shall not have another spouse, or whatever it is, right? I mean, what is idol worship? Idol worship is that you have belief in God, and there's only one being, that's only one power that exists. It's the deepest relationship you can have with God. If you go away from that relationship, that's idol worship. Marriage, if you go away from that relationship, that is considered adultery.
But they had several wives.
So good. So niyaf is going to be specifically a married woman cannot marry. It's a great question unto itself. Why is it that in Judaism, in biblical Judaism, a man can have multiple wives and a woman cannot have multiple husbands? If a woman has multiple husbands, that's called adultery. If a man has multiple wives, that's called family or insanity. One of the two, right? Right. So why?
It's a multiple parents-in-law too.
That's even worse, right? Right? So why would that be? That's a good question unto itself. It has to do with the nature of the woman. The woman is the nurturing aspect. That she is the ultimate creator, and therefore for her she has to be entirely devoted. Whereas the man does not look in the world of creation in the same way. In the Kabbalistic approaches, man is a spark that goes from place to place to place, whereas a woman remains and nurtures and builds. That's why the daughter, is the same word as bayit, is the house, is the one that builds everything around it, to where the men is what we call the builder. Ben is the boneh, is the builder. He's the one that goes from place to place and place, whereas the bayit is the actual mainstay. That is the actual structure that keeps things around.
How about in a family where there's one husband with multiple wives, you always know who the father is and you always know who the mother is. But in a household of one woman and multiple husbands, you don't always know who the father is, even though you know.
Good. So someone asked me this question today. Can a single woman get religious? Obviously, a halacha question. Can a single woman be artificially inseminated? Survey says?
Uh-huh.
What do you think?
Yes.
Halachically, can she do it, right? Tough question, huh? What does it mean? It
You
means
need to know who the father
she
is.
what does it mean? Single woman. We're not talking about a married couple. We're talking about a woman who wants to have a child, but she's not married. Can she do it?
Yeah,
Halachically
I
no.
would say no.
Halachically no, but
I don't know why.
Well, that
I'll
was.
say no, but I don't know why.
Yeah, so I was reading
I
up
have
upon
one
it that
example why.
even if you were to get around all the halachic issues that are associated with it, right? Even if you were to get around it, they said that there is not a single posek, no decisive halacha at all that allows us at all, because seemingly it's a breakaway from the entire family unit in its entirety, and the Gemara's terminology is that of a shtuki. Shtuki is what we would call most basketball players of the NBA, where well, that's okay. If you don't get it, Sean Kemp. Okay, so
12 children, 13 different
13 wives, 12 children, whatever it is, right? Where a shtuki is where the mother's known because she had the baby, but the father's unknown because they don't know who the father is. So technically, in this case here, the child would be called that, but it seems that it breaks away from the family unit, and therefore there's no halachic posek that allows that to happen. I don't know. It just happened that someone asked me the question today.
Can it be because this example was already taught about Miriam and Yoshka?
Oh, about
It's kind of like it's exactly the same example.
the long football throw, yeah. So
The
is
gymnast. We're talking about gymnast.
he's on camera. He doesn't even know.
Also, another analogy about the man with being everywhere and a woman, so a man creates millions of
Correct.
sperm.
That's
and
part
a
of it,
woman
right? That is
creates
all.
one
It's all
egg.
part. All of Kabbalah and the physical side is all the same. Correct. That's one and the same. And that the man is not around for the nurturing of the baby at all, and the woman is also there, right?
But when they do like assimilation,
Right.
it's probably it's help to God to create a lot of children like stars of the
But no, because God wants it in the purest way, which means that the concept of marriage is for Jew and non-Jew alike. And the whole concept of Adam and Eve is about marriage, right? One of the concepts is about marriage, so God wants the family unit to be intact. And that's why honor your father and your mother. Not honor your mother and the guy from the store who you don't even know. It's honor your father and mother, which means it's an important aspect that God wants. They want generations to be developed through the mother-father relationship. Not even though you can say I'm populating the world.
But if he couldn't,
Okay, so that's a different thing. But we're talking about a single woman. It's different than single woman is different than a case of a married couple. So you're right. There are ways certainly for a single woman. a married couple to do it, but a single woman seems to be that they don't accept that. Okay, so fine. So the third one is do not take God's name in vain and do not steal. So I heard, not from this, but I heard that my wife was telling me that she heard as well, from Rabbi Gordon, that said over the idea, and I'm just trying to see if I can remember it off the cuff, is that when using God's name in vain is, in essence, is like you're trying to, quote unquote, steal God's name. What does it mean, you're stealing God's name? A person wants to swear on something for no reason. It's like I'm utilizing something of holiness in order to prove my point, and when they do that, they're basically taking something of holiness and misusing it, which would be the equivalent of stealing, taking something that doesn't actually belong to you in that way. So either way, we understand that this is actually kidnapping. So that stealing here means referring to the concept of kidnapping. So he points out the following. I'll just present what he says over here. Don't take God's name in vain is lo tisa shem Hashem Elokecha lashav. Lo tisa. Lo tisa means don't use God's name in vain is what we usually say, but it means to lift or to carry. Lo tisa means that's where a masa is a load. So it's interesting when we say do not use God's name in vain, the Hebrew word is lo tisa, which actually means do not lift or carry God's name in vain. Which means that we're basically visualizing as if God is being carried off in vain in something that that you can pick up and carry off. So he says, what does it feel like when you come home and you see a policeman outside your home? Your house is broken into, shattered glass windows. You visit people say it feels like you're being violated. Right? So he says, so being violated is something that we usually refer to about ourselves, kidnapping and the like. Okay, so but the concept over here is that when you're taking something that's precious, that's the concept of being violated, something that's precious, and you're now taking that and misusing that, that is the concept of taking God's name in vain. Using God's name in vain. It's something so holy, so precious that people use it. Unfortunately, people use God's name all the time. The question when people say like, I swear to, or I sweater, whatever they say, however they say it, right? So they don't, are they referring to God? No, they're just referring to statements. Like when they say cheese and crackers, or what's the proper way to say it? People say cheeseless crackers? Right, cheeseless crackers.
Cheese and H.
Cheeseless crackers.
Cheese H crackers.
Cheese H?
Second cheese?
Cheeseless crackers.
Cheese H crackers.
What's the H?
Holy.
That's yeah.
Oh, that's okay, whatever. Okay, either way. So the point is that people misuse that all the time. Meaning they shouldn't. If a Jew should not be using these words all the time at any point. If he's saying JC's name, it shouldn't be something that utters on his lips. But even using God's name is
What about
not,
like OMH or?
so OMH. You can say literally OMH or Oh my Hashem. OMH is already. It's not even the name.
Right, but if you say,
But if someone says "Oh my G-D" and they say God's name there, it's like you're just throwing out God's name. You're just like throwing it. Doesn't have value to you. You don't value the name of God over here.
but you're not using it in a profane way.
But you're not using it properly, right? You're not
You're
using the
lowering the
name.
name.
You're lowering the value.
Something I always, God forgive. Can I tell you? Or no?
But that's referring to God. But when someone like stubs his toe and he says, "Oh my," right?
Yeah, no.
That's misusing it. It's not valuing it, and it's taking something that's precious and really just destroying it. Okay,
What about the alternates like "gosh darn it"?
that's fine.
That's fine. Okay.
Because first of all, nobody that I know, when they say "gosh darn it," has any thought in their mind that they're referring to God.
Okay.
Yeah. I've never met that person. Maybe there is. Fine. What's after that? Shabbos. What does Shabbos represent? Shabbos represents the ultimate devotion that a person has to God. Why? Because Shabbos is a testimony. God said, "I created the world, and therefore you listen, you do what I tell you to do," and that is giving that's giving that testimony. Okay, what's the opposite on the other side? What's on the other side between man and man is
What's the ninth one?
9. Yeah.
Do not lie.
Oh, do not covet.
Do not bear false witness.
Oh,
Yeah.
false witness.
Do not bear false witness, right? Which means Shabbos is a testimony. You are giving, every time a person keeps Shabbos, they're giving testimony that God created the world and he's in charge of everything. And the person who doesn't is basically bearing false witness, saying that, no, I don't really believe in all the aspects of this. Okay? That's the general understanding of it. And then the last one, the last set of this.
So when it says like number 9, does it talk that the person that doesn't observe and saying like I don't believe in it, or like I don't believe like all the way when it goes to Mount Sinai pretty much, like I don't believe.
It's really a matter of how. I don't know if it's really that different. You know what I'm saying? When a person says, do not bear false witness, a person can give a white lie, not a major lie. They said to him, were you at the store at 5 o'clock? Yeah, I was there 5 o'clock and really only showed up to 5:15. I'm not fully lying. I'm only giving a couple things. So it's really the same. It sounds like it's the same degree that a person has. Last set that we have of these sets are honoring your mother and your father and do not covet. Always the hardest one to figure out, right? So what he presents over here is that do not covet, which means do not desire of your neighbor's things, is the correlation to your parents is that coveting is in pure relationships. I should be able to have what you have, right? I deserve what you have. There's 2 different ways. In the first set of the 10 Commandments is do not covet. Second one is one of them is lo tis'ave, one is lo tachmod. We've said this over in the past, but it's important to relate again. So lo tachmod could be I want what you have because you have it, right? So I want your maidservant, I want your wife, I want all these things, and therefore if I have it, you won't have it, right? Those are the basic things you have. That's lo tachmod. Lo tis'ave is just having the desire. I want that chair because you have that chair. So I'm just going to go buy that chair. You can keep your chair, but now I have it also. So whereas in one, it's I'm coveting to the point that the only way for me to have it is for you not to have it. And the second one is that I want it because you have it, but you can have it also, and I just want it as well.
What's wrong with that? If your neighbor has a Corvette and you want one too, what's wrong with that?
Well, the Torah says you can't. That's the only problem.
You can't desire the same car?
So the question is, why are you desiring it? Are you desiring because you would like that
car? I
car?
like it. I want one too.
Or Maserati's telling you, right?
No, but
What's wrong with
you
desiring-
decided to have it once your neighbor got it.
Right.
What about something like this? Like, oh, I love your chumash. I want that.
So the Gemara says, "Kina sofrim mar b'chachma," that jealousy of sofrim, of scribes, increase wisdom. More people learn, more people get these things, right? The question is, why do you want these things? Why do you want the Corvette? Because he has it. Well, no, that's the question. Which means if you're at a trade show and you see something, oh, I'd love to have that, you know?
Right, but I wanted a Corvette before he got it.
Oh, that's different now. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you go to your friend, you go to a trade show, some guy's like, look at this watch, oh, I gotta have that watch, it's an amazing watch, I need that watch. Okay, you get the watch, right? When you go to your neighbor, you're like, Bob has that watch, huh? Yeah. Okay.
I gotta get one too.
You gotta get one of those watches, right? That's a different thing.
Keep up with the Joneses.
Keep up with the Bobs, Joneses, right? The point is that the reason why you want it is because of the person around you that has it, and that's not easily discernible, right? So when you get something that somebody else has, you might be in violation of not coveting, right? But no, I didn't take his. He's got his own. I didn't take it, but why did you get it? Not because you really wanted it, but because he had it, right? So it's just
Every time I ask your wife for a recipe, is that coveting?
no, I don't think so.
I
As
have
long
to
as it's
have,
kosher, it's not.
I don't
I
think
have
so,
to
right?
have that dessert.
Right? Now, he points out that the correlation of not coveting, of desiring somebody else.
So what if I asked Eric, I really like the way you play the piano. Can you teach me that song? Because I want to know it too.
But it doesn't sound like that's coveting. You don't want it because he knows it. You like the song, and you want to play that song. Not because you know it, I need to know this.
But I can go and learn on my own.
The classic scenario is sibling rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
You know? This guy knows this instrument, I gotta learn this instrument. I gotta outpace him. I gotta outrun him on the marathon. I gotta outdo this. That's a classic scenario that you have it. In neighborhoods, you tend to have it this way also. When people live in certain areas, they have to have certain things that other people drive. Otherwise, they're going to be embarrassed, going to be this, or they need to keep up with the Joneses. That's really what it is. Meaning, keeping up with the Joneses generally falls under this category of lo tisava, of not desiring what somebody else
I've
has.
seen all my neighbors really looking at my 2004 Nissan Sentra.
And they say, where do we get something like that? And you go, you
But
can't
it's
even
antique.
buy
But
this in
it's
stores.
antique. Antique is more expensive than any other
That's
car.
true. That's true. Anyway, so he says, do not covet. And honoring your father and mother is that what coveting is in peer relationships, dishonoring your parents is in creator relationships. What does that basically mean? It means is a personality flaw. Personality flaw is I'm not happy with what I have, and therefore I want what you have. And when I don't honor my parents, I'm not happy with the way that they govern over me and the way they tell me certain things. Therefore, I don't honor them. I don't appreciate or treat them properly. So that seems to be the correlation that he presents over here. Let me just use his words that he says. He says, when it comes to lo tachmod, it says, lo tachmod beis re'echa. Do not desire your friend's house, and do not covet his wife, his manservant, his maidservant, anything that he has. And it gets very specific. Why over and over? So he explains. He says, I still want to get to the end of it. It's a longer explanation I give. Just want to present this idea. He says that a person doesn't feel like they have a role in their world. Their role in their world is really based on somebody else's world that they live in. So to realize that I occupy a particular role in my world, that is very important. But when I feel like I'm occupying a role in my world based on you, so then that is where coveting actually is. So he says, I'm never going to feel like the next guy. It's not possible. So if I feel like I'm never going to get to that level of what that person is, and I need what he has, then I'm never going to feel fulfilled that I'm actually making a difference in my life. Because I always want what somebody else has. So he says the same thing is true with your parents. The reason why you honor your parents is because they gave you everything that you have. But what if everything you have wasn't good enough? No, not fair. Why did you give me the things I have? What if they gave me the wrong education? They gave me the wrong genes and everything else. What if I viewed it that the greatest gift they gave me is not really a gift at all? Right? I'm not happy with this. Why should I actually honor you? There'd be no reason to give them honor. I would be resentful against them. So anytime I have that negative feeling towards them, that sense of resentment is the form, again, the opposite of coveting, because I'm not happy with what I have, and that's why I'm not going to honor you. So too with my friend, I'm not happy with what I have, which is why I want what you actually have. So what the essence of these principles basically is the concept is recognizing your self-worth and self-value in this world. Between you and the creators above you, and between you and the people around you. And so what Hillel's trying to teach over here is really about this lesson over here, that what we need to be able to learn is what you don't want done to you is recognize who you are, recognize the value of who you are, and that's how you're going to treat everybody else. That's the respect that you're going to have. So all these 10 commandments, in essence, are really come down to the essence of respect. The essence of respecting God and your parents and the creators above you, and respecting everyone else, and really valuing who you are as the individual. When you can value who you are as the individual, that actually has a tremendous effect. And that's why this could be an overarching statement for all of the Torah, which is what Hillel's trying to teach over to this potential convert. And that is a message for us. It's so much to learn in the Torah. But if we stop to look, to think for a second for ourselves who we are, what the value and purpose we have in the world, that's going to help us fulfill every one of those other commandments that we have, the other mitzvos of the 613. That's where we're going to stop over here.
So if everything comes from Hashem, and then we talk about 10, the reason why you got